Hello and welcome to the Sonic Cinema podcast. My name is Brian Skutle and thank you for joining us at www.sonic-cinema.com. This week's episode is going to be about Dragon Con 2017, the 4-day fantasy genre convention that takes place in Atlanta, Georgia every Labor Day weekend. And this was my ninth year attending. This weekend, I attended with my mother, Vicky, and my wife, Meredith, who was attending her third. My mother's gone most of the times I've gone, with the one exception of 2011. Um, this year felt very off for a lot of reasons. It has nothing to do with the convention, which is still wonderfully run. They do a good job of handling all the logistics every year. They do a good job of handling the lines and making sure there's plenty of stuff for people to do. But this year, personally, and I know I can speak for both my mother and wife when I say this, it just uh, felt off this year, and I'll explain why as I go through the events of the weekend. One of the things that was made this a bit different is because of the fact that we ended up changing hotels, partially, mainly because we couldn't get into the hotel we would prefer to get into the Hilton Garden Inn in downtown, over where the Georgia Aquarium is and Centennial Park is. Uh, and we ended up back at the W in Midtown, which is where we stayed in 2013 when we first stayed in a hotel for the weekend. Um, and it the overall it was a difficult situation because of the fact that it was a bit more expensive than the Hilton Garden Inn, which meant we only ended up staying for the weekend, Friday through Monday, as opposed to Thursday through Monday, which we've done the past few years. And that made it difficult because of the fact that it meant we had to check in on Friday, which is also the first day of con, the official first day of con, as far as when most of the big panels and stuff happen. Um, and that it's like you kind of want to just go back to the hotel and just relax, but it's like we had to check in. And because of the fact that we ended up using a third party, which we will never do again, to book the reservation, um, we ended up, uh, they ended up having a hard time finding our reservation or for one of the rooms. So that was stressful. On top of everything else, Thursday, all we basically did was we went, we got our registration, we got our badges, so we were good to go when we got down there on Friday. Um, and then we came back to our side of town and home for the evening. And we packed in the morning, and then we went from there. Friday morning, the first panel we wanted to go see was 10 a.m. with Nathan Fillion, who was only there on Friday. And unfortunately, the line was capped by the time that we got into it. So we weren't able to see him, unfortunately, in that panel. We didn't really want to go over to the live feed at the Marriott. Um, so Meredith and I, who drove separately, we ended up going to the first film festival block of the con. The Independent Film Festival is one of the things I got into a few years ago in 2011 when I really kind of had my share, kind of um, had my pick of the litter when I really was kind of by myself for most of the con, and I went to a lot of it, and I went to a lot of the film festival blocks, and it was really a lot of fun to do. And this one had a lot of really, really short films and had zombies at Christmas, you had ghosts, you had martial artists, you had puppets, monsters, fan films, comedy, drama, horror. It was a really nice mix of films that really got the con off to a good start for us. And that was enjoyable. Zombie Christmas, which was animated, was really fun. There was a Star Wars short about toys that was the Star Wars toys that was a lot of fun, and there were a lot of other great choices. I don't have them in front of me right now, but it was a good way to start the con. Um, from 11 until 1, Meredith and I, my mother came down later, although we never actually saw her at the convention. That's a whole different story. From 11 to 1, Meredith and I went over to the Marriott to get in line for a 1 o'clock panel and also to get food. And we basically got a whole pizza from one of the Papa John's kiosks that were there, and we got in line for Stan Lee. And we actually were able to go into the ballroom that the panel was held around 11:40, 11:45 or so, and we basically were there until 1 o'clock when Stan came out. I had seen Stanley several years ago. I want to say 2012, 2013. I think it was 2012. Um, with my friend Ron, and he was just as much fun on this one as he was back then, and, and the people running the panel made the audience aware. It's like, please do not mention the fact that Stan Lee's wife had passed away recently, and we wanted it to be a fun situation. Nobody brought it up after that, thankfully, and that made for an entertaining. I made for an entertaining panel, and he was he was fun to listen to as always. People were asking him some pretty basic questions. Talked about his run with DC. Talks about which characters he enjoys and which characters were his favorites, and also talks about the proper um, spelling of the word comic book if it's being written out. And so saith Stan Lee, so shall it be. Comic book is supposed to be one word, not two. And that was definitely one of the big highlights of the panel. And all of the panels that we went to ended up being really good. We just ended up not getting to a lot. Um, so that was our 1 o'clock panel on Friday. At 2:30, we actually ended up going over to the Westin for a Buffy and Angel guest panel with Charisma Carpenter, who played Cordelia, Julie Benz, who played Darla, and Claire Kramer, who played Glory. And those three were a lot of fun. They've been friends for a long time, and if you follow them on social media, you know that they're really good friends in real life, and that carried over in the in the panel in general. Was interesting because of the fact that it was interesting because of the fact that nobody really brought up Joss Whedon in the panels. I wondered whether it was just because of the who was involved, or whether it was because of the recent controversy that his ex-wife brought up. And I have my own very definite feelings on that, that I might share later, but I won't do it here. Needless to say, it rattled this Joss Whedon fan to read what his ex-wife wrote, and it's pretty unsettling for somebody who considers Joss one of their favorite filmmakers of all time. Um, but it was still a very fun panel. They really enjoyed the audience. The audience really enjoyed talking to them, and it was fun. And so that was our 2:30 to 3:30 hour. Um, After that, we didn't really do much. We decided to hit the Hard Rock for dinner afterwards, and so after that, we went to the Hard Rock, and it was a perfect time to go because nobody was there. It was really not busy at all, and so we sat there. We enjoyed our meal. We saw a little bit of cosplay, and it's always a fun atmosphere to go eat at the Hard Rock. Even though it also can be extremely loud. Um, but that ended up really being the last thing we kind of ended up doing because we were pretty tired from being up early in the day to get ready to go down to con. One of the downsides of not being at the hotel overnight, and it uh, ended up being fortuitous that we left when we did because of the fact that of the complications with the hotel and getting checked in. And so, unfortunately, we missed Nathan Fillion, which I really was hoping to see him because it's the first time in a long time that he's been at Dragon Con. This is the first time since I've been going that he had been to Dragon Con, and unfortunately, Friday was the only day he was there. So we missed a 7 p.m. panel of his about Conman, the Alan Tudyk web short, but we just need to get back to the just get to the hotel and relax after a really long day. So that was our Friday night. Um, Saturday, Saturday was pretty light. This entire weekend was just very light for us for a lot of different reasons. This one, unfortunately, had to do with a miscalculation on my part. We got down there, and my mother who got down to the con later and didn't really get to do a whole lot, and part of the reason she didn't is because her knees were really bothering her. She was really worried about that, and so she was not in good shape for this convention from a physical standpoint. So she ended up not getting down to Dragon Con at all on Saturday. But Meredith and I ended up going. We ended up getting there a bit later than I would have liked. I always like to try to get down there early and get parked uh, well before the annual parade starts. And fortunately, that didn't happen. And so, because of a miscalculation on my part as to which way we should go, we were going to try to go to the vendors during the parade and just hang out there. We ended up going a way that ended up being very claustrophobic and uncomfortable, and we ended up basically inadvertently watching the parade because of the fact that we were we were stuck. We couldn't move, and it made for a very uncomfortable start of the day on Saturday. Um, but we did it after the parade. We ended up going to the dealers. We did some shopping, and just went over and spend some time over there. And we ended up missing quite a bit of panels this day. We only ended up seeing one panel at 5:30 with Zachary Levy from Chuck and Tangled, which Meredith had wanted to see, and I enjoyed Chuck when I had seen it, and really loved Tangled. It's one of my favorite recent Disney movies. So that was definitely, and it was his first time at Dragon Con, and he was a lot of fun. he was a lot of fun to listen to. He really it was just very he was very loose with it. He was very engaged with the audience. He was very he was he put on a show as well as answering everybody's questions, and it was just really great. In between the parade and the panel, we ate at the Metro Cafe Diner, which is another place that I tend to eat out down there. At Dragon Con, it's open 24 hours. They've got good food, and it's it's nice, easy, sort of in the middle of everything place to eat. And but yeah, we unfortunately missed a lot of panels. We missed one with John Cusack. We missed one with Wall Shawn. We missed Agents of Shield, which neither of us had caught up with. So we ended up not going to that. But the Zachary Levy thing was the last thing we ended up doing that day before we went back to the hotel. Got some Subway afterwards and just basically went in for the night. One of the things about me is I think 2011 and I think 2014 were the only years that I really have done much of anything as like later in the day at Dragon Con. Most of the time I'm usually like day panels and stuff like that, and then I back to the go back to the hotel to relax. And that was kind of what we did, even though we ended up not doing a whole lot of panels, mainly because of time. Because when by the time we got to the vendors, like we were already going to miss one of the panels we wanted to go see, and the timing just didn't work out. It was kind of a mess as far as timing this year's first panels. And the fact of the matter is, it's like some of the panels, it's like we were originally going to try to do a 2:30 panel of either Star Wars or Guardians of the Galaxy, but the lines were just ridiculously convoluted at the time, so we just ended up not doing either one and went to go eat instead, and just waited to get in line for Zachary Levy. So that was our Saturday. Sunday, Sunday the 3rd, we got down there early again. We did the let's see, I believe we did the vendors first because a friend of ours wanted a lightsaber from Ultra Sabers, and we ended up picking that up for him. And we did some hunting around the shops after that, and the different vendors after that, just seeing if there was anything else we wanted. I don't think we got too much of anything else at the time. But again, this was a day where it's like there were. This was kind of a day where we sort of did mostly like shopping type thing, and just sort of taking it easy. So we did vendors first thing, and then we went down to the Walk of Fame because I had wanted to meet John Cusack, who was at Dragon Con, and he's one of my absolute favorite actors. Got to see him around noon, I think, and I was surprised at how easy it was to see him and to see him quickly. And so we got in there and I got his autograph. I got to meet him. Got to tell him how much Grosse Point Blank and High Fidelity, which are my two favorite films of his, mean to me. And that was a lot of fun meeting him. And then after that, we dropped off some stuff at the car and at the truck. And then we basically just staked out over the Hilton for the next few hours because that was when John Cusack's second panel of the weekend was going to be. It's great actor plus great script equals blockbuster. And was with Ashley Scott, was with Sean Gunn, who's James Gunn's brother from Guardians of the Galaxy, and he is also Gilmore Girls. And then Ned Bellamy, who's a character actor who a lot of people will recognize as the dentist who uh, plays the alternative Bela Lugosi at the end of in Plan 9 from Outer Space and Tim Burton's Ed Wood. And so we basically just chilled out over the Hilton for a little bit before getting in line there for the 4 o'clock panel. A lot of long waits in line for panels this year. For three of the four panels we went to this year. Um, but I mean, there were three panels that we really wanted to go to, and it was worth it. Um, and that panel was really a lot of fun to hear each actor's different perspective on uh, how writing and uh, affects their performance on what it's like to be an actor, the type of actors, just individual things with the actors and how they choose their scripts and what they go into for their scripts, how much, which was a big thing with John Cusack, how much music influences them when it comes to getting in touch with for scripts and just a lot of different questions that touched on a different range of subjects. Somebody asked Sean about Gilmore Girls. John was asked about High Fidelity, and his writing work and producing work, what it's like working with his sister Joan. And it was just a lot of fun. It was good to have that panel. All of the panels, it's like we only went to four panels, but all four of them were really high quality, which is part of the reason why um, this year kind of felt very surreal because of the fact that it's like we didn't do much of anything, and the only other thing we ended up doing this week, as far as the program content, was after the panel at the Hilton on Sunday, we went to a film festival screen block of a few films that we may have missed, and it were sort of second screenings for some of these. It was two. It was all Japanese. One was a cyberpunk virtual reality thriller. The other one was a couple of shorts about creature hunters in Japan, and all three of those were good. They were Meredith. I partially because of the fact that she was probably tired, partially because of the fact that I don't know whether she was bored or not. I didn't seem too interested in those, but I mean they were enjoyable shorts. I think we definitely got better block on Friday than we did there. But it wasn't it was a decent thing to do, and we ended up going to a hotel after that. My mom did end up getting down to Dragon Con on Sunday, but we ended up not seeing her like the entire weekend, except for when I would go visit the hotel, her room at the hotel. And I'm not gonna go into the details of what she had to deal with on Sunday leaving the con, but it's like she had some good times during the con experience on Sunday. It was just getting out of and going back to the hotel that was really stress inducing for her. And really, she decided Sunday night that it's like she was just going to go home on Monday, and she ended up doing that. We went back today. We were originally going to go to the Walk of Fame to get an autograph for Meredith and her sister, because one of the actors there was an actress from a show that they watched, and we ended up she ended up not being at the Walk of Fame, unfortunately. But she did have a panel at 1 o'clock, 11:30. We were originally going to go to Megan Follows, but we ended up we ended up not staying for the panel after things didn't work out at the Walk of Fame, and then we ended up going to the vendors, doing a little bit more um, purchasing for my mom wanted something from the vendors for Beaker, which is her favorite Muppet, and we got some stuff for Ron and who was watching over cats, and so we basically did that stuff, and we ended up just calling it a con after that. So that was our con. And it was very, like I said, it was very. It's a very strange con. It was probably the least, in a lot of ways, it was the least satisfying con I've been to for a lot of reasons. It just didn't feel like we did a whole lot. Um, I kind of wish we had gotten a chance to do more, but I mean that's kind of how it is based on the schedule that we had, as far as like not being in a hotel on Thursday night and having to pack and go down on Friday and all that stuff. And it felt like a lot of things that make Dragon Con enjoyable for me were missing. But at the same time, the things that we did go to, with the exception of the parade, which was incredibly uncomfortable for a lot of reasons, it the things that we went to were good, and the panels were really good. The film festival blocks were good. They were entertaining, for me at least. And I mean, so on the one hand, it's like, yeah, I enjoyed this con probably as much as I have other cons, and that way, and the fact that the panels were good and were worthwhile. But in the other hand, I would have liked to have gotten my picture with John Cusack. I would have liked to have met Nathan Fillion. I wish I had gotten a chance to see Wallace Shawn. Would have been nice to do some of the other panels, but it's like it just it just the overall experience just didn't gel, and it fell off from previous years. And it's like I'm still gonna go next year. I'm still gonna go the year after that, the year after that, as long as I end up going. One exciting thing about it is Meredith, when she goes in a couple more years, she's got a cosplay that she's wanting to do. It's very exciting. It's the first time she's going to be dressing up for con, and that's going to be exciting to see how that evolves over the next year or two. I'm definitely going to get some Jedi robes and cosplay as a Jedi. Hopefully next year, definitely the next year after that, and hopefully I'll get to see more people. I hate that I miss so many people with Dragon Con. Like I Facebook friends with a lot of people who go Dragon Con. I just don't see them. And I mean, part of that is because of the fact that it's like we didn't stay as late as we, otherwise would, in order to be able to see those people. But it's also just the fact that it's like there's so much to do that the schedule was just really difficult to manage. And so that's the type of thing that happens at Dragon Con. I mean, you can still have a good time at Dragon Con without seeing a lot of these people. They add to the experience. They don't necessarily become the experience. Sometimes talking to somebody in line at Dragon Con is makes up for that. Being able to enjoy the company of the people you're in line with for like an hour or so, and even just communicating with people via text message and stuff like that, seeing them on Facebook, seeing what they're doing on Facebook. It's like sometimes that can be enough. And it's like that's one of the things that I enjoy about having the friends and the people that I know who enjoy Dragon Con, is that seeing them enjoy it as well, and seeing what their experience is like compared to mine, but not comparing it. And I think that's the key thing. It's like each Dragon Con is different. This year, kind of a substandard one overall. but it's overall I felt like I got something out of it. I enjoyed the experience. I got to meet John Cusack, who's one of my favorite actors. I may not get a chance to do that again. I hope I do, but I really loved that experience. I loved hearing Stan Lee. I enjoyed sharing that time with my wife. I enjoyed sharing, our times. I enjoyed seeing her get excited about the possibility of doing cosplay herself, and it's like that was that was something that was worthwhile for me. And there's a lot of stuff that there's a lot of stuff that makes Dragon Con worthwhile for me that still made my Dragon Con worthwhile, even though overall it wasn't the experience that I had gotten used to, where to a certain extent gets better every year. This was not that year, and I mean it kind of took a step back. There were a lot of eye-opening things for my mother, myself, that it's like, yeah, this type of thing matters as far as the hotel you're in matters. Feeling comfortable in the hotel you're in matters. Being able to do this, that, and the other thing matters, and it's like that's something that we're going to work out for the next time we go to Dragon Con, and then the next time, and the next time. And it's like, to a certain extent, some of these years can be learning processes as far as learning how to navigate an experience like Dragon Con to where it can be enjoyable even if you don't do everything that you would like to enjoy doing. I mean, I think that's an important point to make in going to Dragon Con, going to conventions. Uh, my friends Ron and Daniel and I went to Star Wars Celebrations like earlier in April. And it's like we haven't talked about that situation yet, but that was a very different experience than what I'm used to at Dragon Con. Not in a lot of ways, it was a great experience. In a lot of ways, it really was not a good experience that I would want to go back to. Dragon Con, even though I'm feel kind of let down by this year, I'm still going to go back to it because again, it was the stuff that mattered, the stuff that I did get a chance to do that was rewarding. And I mean that really kind of wraps up Dragon Con for me. There's not really much more to say about it because we didn't really do much and got some good pictures. Didn't get a lot of pictures, but I got some quality pictures. Uh, and it's one of those things where this is Dragon Con's a work in progress, and it's like it changes from year to year. That was one of the things that occurred to me the one year that I really had the weekend to myself, where it's like, wow, I can shape this in a lot of different ways. I don't have to do this, that, and the other thing to get enjoyment out of this. I can do other things. I missed Star Wars panels completely this year. I missed, Star Trek panels. I missed Agents of Shield panels. I missed Jewel State having a panel. And it's like I missed a lot of stuff, but that just wasn't going to be the experience this year. And that's and in the end it's like it's disappointing, but it doesn't sour me on the experience. I'm still going to go back and I'll have a very different experience next year, and I'm looking forward to that. So that's it for me for this latest episode of the Sonic Cinema podcast. I have another one that's going to be coming up really soon. It's going to be another filmmaker interview that I'm really looking forward to doing. And I hope you listen in on that. I hope you go back, and all of them are on YouTube now. I'm going to be releasing them on YouTube from now on. And I hope you enjoy listening to them there, and subscribe to the Sonic Cinema podcast on YouTube, and share it with friends. And thank you for listening to the Sonic Cinema podcast. And this is Brian Skutle, and you can find us at www.sonic-cinema.com.